friends, and welcome back to Organizing with Ease. I am so glad you have pressed that play button today because why? I think this conversation is so important because so many of us, I think, need us right now. And because why? Because I have actually noticed things happening, not just in my own life, but in just conversations with friends, with clients, and even with family members. It feels like though life suddenly kind of shifts gears. Maybe you felt it as well. The calendar that seemed, wide open just a few weeks ago, well, guess what? It's starting to fill up again, like quickly. The work has actually picked up. School routines, oh my gosh, are beginning again. How I can so feel that, especially my senior year. Listen to me, senior year of high school. It's the appointments, it's the meetings, it's the practices, it's the errands, it's the volunteer commitments. Yes, they're all starting to find you and they're all trying to get back onto your calendars and to your schedules. And before we know it, we're moving from, ready, one thing to the next and wondering where our day went. So, can I ask you something, my friend? Have you ever looked at the calendar and thought, how did it get so full? Like, not because you planned to be overwhelmed. I don't think anybody plans to be overwhelmed, right? And not because you did anything wrong, but because what? Life simply happened. And one yes, what happens? One last yes leads to another. One commitment turned into not one, but like 3 to 5. And somewhere along the way, we just stopped leaving space to simply breathe. And I think that's what today's conversation, this is why it's so timely. Because when life gets busy, our first instinct is to what? Is to usually do more. We try to squeeze in one more thing into the day. We tell ourselves we catch up. Oh, we'll catch up. I'll get that over the weekend. Or maybe that, and then what happens then? Maybe then the next weekend. But what if that's not the answer? What if creating a calmer life isn't about doing more? What about if it's doing less with greater intention? So today, we're going to be talking about protecting your time, your energy, and your peace, yes, during the busy seasons. And before we finish, I'm going to share with you a simple strategy that I use myself, and it's the rule of 3. Simple, easy, just to help you bring some clarity when life starts to feel a little bit overwhelming. So now, my friend, grab some coffee, tea, whatever it might be, and let's just dive right in. Life gets full. It just does. Not necessarily because we planned it, because we definitely, it is what it is. It is. It just happens. The calendar slowly fills, schools start, work gets busier, volunteer activities start coming in, sport activities, any other after school activities begin. The meetings pick back up again. There are birthday parties, there are appointments, there are errands, there's groceries, there's emails, and on and on. And then somewhere in the middle of that, we're trying to remember to take care of ourselves too, because remember, that's self-care. So here I have another question for you. Have you ever looked at your calendar and thought, how did it get so full? Not because something bad happened, because majority of the time it's not. It's because simply life happened. And one yes, again, got to another. And then one commitment led to another. And before we knew it, there you had it. Your days started feeling much more reactive than what? Intentional. And I think we've all been there. I know I definitely have been. And the interesting thing about when life gets full, our first instinct is what? Is to usually do more. We wake up earlier. We work harder. We buy another planner. We find another app. We try to get more organized. But what if the answer isn't about doing more? And what about if the answer is doing less? Less is better. That's something different, right? And that's what I want to talk about because organizing isn't about squeezing more onto your calendar. It's about creating space enough to enjoy life that you are already building. A full calendar, my friend, does not always equal a full life. So when did busy become the goal? So I've noticed something over the past few years, somewhere along the way. Being busy became something that we celebrate. Someone asks, how are you doing? And what happens? Without thinking, we answer, oh, I'm busy. My calendar is full. Almost like it's a badge of honor, wouldn't you say? Because it's almost like being busy somehow means that you're successful. But does it? Because I've met people whose calendars are completely full and yet they still feel disconnected, exhausted, behind, overwhelmed. And I've also met people who intentionally leave white space on their calendar. Are you one of those people? It's time to think, time to rest, time to enjoy dinner without rushing, time to walk the dog like I do, my little guy Eddie, time to read, time to simply breathe. Those people aren't less productive. In many cases, they're actually accomplishing what matters the most. I had a client tell me something that was like, what? She looked around her beautifully organized home and said, Deanna, my home finally feels calm. Now I just need my calendar to feel the same way. That made me stop for a second because we spend so much time organizing our spaces. But what about organizing our time? What about organizing our commitments? What about organizing our energy? Sometimes that is not the clutter in the closet, and sometimes it's actually on the calendar. According to the American Psychological Association, many adults report that everyday responsibilities and packed schedules are among the busiest and the biggest sources of ongoing stress. Isn't it always that one major it's not always that major one event. It's just not. It's the accumulation of many small responsibilities competing for what? Attention. Does it sound familiar? So what if this week, instead of asking, how can I fit one more thing in? What about what can make my week easier? What is that one question that you can what is that one question? With that one question, what can you completely change? The way that you work through your week. The goal isn't to fill every hour of the day. The goal is to make the hours that matter count. So because when life gets busy, my friend, the first thing that we lose is what? Our margin. And if we think about where we picked up last time on that, where it's about protecting your margin. And what do I mean by that? So it's not about something that has quietly disappeared from so many of our lives. It's not margin. You ready? It's not that financial margin, not the notebook, the margins in the notebook, if you're understanding that analogy. So here, all right. I'm talking about the space between one commitment and the next, the time that allows you to catch your breath. So years ago, it wasn't unusual to have an afternoon that without anything planned. Do you remember those afternoons? Maybe you just ran errands. Maybe you just sat on the porch and had a cup of coffee and had some tea in the late afternoon. Or maybe you just called a friend, or you just was able to read a book. But today, you actually do all of that in the day. So many of us schedule right up to the edge. One meeting ends, another one begins. You drop off the kids, you pick them up. You answer emails while waiting in the parking lot and pickup line, right? You listen to a podcast, but of course, this one while you're folding laundry. You return a phone call while what? You're driving home because you need to multitask. We're doing always something. And while multitasking can help from time to time, I can test you, it does work. But living in that constant motion can leave us feeling like we're never really present. I remember working with a client who said something that she said, I always feel like I'm catching up, but I'm really not actually catching up. Do you understand what she was trying to say? Have you ever felt that way? It's like you're constantly checking things off the list because you're supposed to, right? Because it makes you feel good. But the list somehow just keeps getting longer because it does. But so when we looked at her schedule, it wasn't because she was disorganized, by no means. She simply hadn't left room for herself to what? For any breathing room. Every hour had a purpose. Every evening had an activity. Every weekend had something scheduled. That wasn't any space literally left for life to happen. And here's the truth. You ready? The truth is, life always happens. Someone's going to get sick. Traffic is going to get worse than expected. I don't know if it can get any worse here in the 305, but if it can, I'm sure I'll be experiencing that one. The meetings run long. The washing machine breaks because it did over the summer. A friend calls me needing support. When we're left with no margins, every small interruption feels like it's a crisis. Instead of asking, how can I fit one more thing in? Try asking, where can I create just a little more breathing room? And so maybe it's leaving 15 minutes between appointments. Maybe it's protecting one evening a week each week, nothing on the calendar, but that sounds good. Maybe it's saying no, because remember, no is a full sentence to something good so that you can say yes to something that's even better. So research from the American Sociology Association consistently shows that ongoing stress from everyday responsibilities, not just major life events, can contribute to fatigue, anxiety, and burnout. It's often that constant accumulation of small demands that leaves us feeling what? Depleted. No wonder so many of us are tired. I mean, I'm like even tired listening to that, aren't you? Or it's just not because that we're trying, and we're not doing anything wrong. We're definitely not, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to do it all. We're trying to do all those things. That's what we're trying to do. You don't have to fill up every open space on your calendar just because it's there. You just don't. But protecting our time, your time, it's so important. But there's something even more valuable. It's our energy. It's your energy. Because two people can have the same exact schedule, but experience it very differently. So let's talk about why. Your energy just is as important as your time. Have you ever had one of those days where you technically had enough time, but you just didn't have the energy? Maybe you did sleep well. Maybe your calendar wasn't even full, yet every decision felt a little bit harder. Every email felt heavier. Every little interruption felt and seemed bigger than it normally would. And that's because time and energy are not the same thing. They're not, my friend. And why? Because we often spend too much time managing our calendars that we forget to pay attention to ourselves. When was the last time that you felt your best? When do you feel your best? Are you someone, hear me out on this one, are you someone who thinks clearly first thing in the morning? And that's me. I can think clearly first thing in the morning and sometimes super late at night. Or do you get your creative ideas when they come later in the day? When are you the most patient? Are you ever patient? I'm hoping that you are. I hope you do have some patience. When do you feel like you're feeling drained? Is it by 5 o'clock in the afternoon? All those patterns matter. So as professional organizers, we often focus on your homes, but also I believe that we organize and we help you organize, no matter what you organize on, is also your energy. And why do I say that? Because if you're making decisions and you're exhausted and you're exhausted by the late afternoon, don't save the most important task until 5, knowing how you're going to feel. If your grocery shopping always overwhelms you after work, could it kind of move on to another day? Sometimes it's not about changing everything, but it's about paying attention. So I worked with a client, a business owner, who believed that she just wasn't productive anymore. Makes you kind of think about that, right? So what we did was we talked and we realized she was trying to be doing her most creative work after spending about 5 to 6 hours in meetings and doing things and working with clients. Nothing was wrong with her. She simply was asking herself to do the hardest work when her energy was at the lowest, when it was already gone. So a small shift made a huge difference. She began protecting her mornings, and guess what? For that creative work. There you had it. A simple shift. Scheduled the meetings later on in the day after 1. Same number of hours, right? But a completely different experience. According to the Gallup State of Global Workplace Research, stress continues to affect a large percentage of employees worldwide, with many reporting that they felt stressed during much of their workday. It reminds us that productivity isn't just about managing time, it's about managing our well being. Protect your energy, my friend, the way that you protect your calendar. So maybe this week, the goal isn't about doing more. Maybe it's about feeling better while you're doing it. And sometimes that is probably the bigger win. And that brings me to something that we only need to hear, but we need to hear it once in a while. And that is permission. Yes. And I'm giving you permission to do less. Can you believe that? Deanna is giving you permission to do less. I'm giving you a permission slip. You don't have to earn them. Certainly not. You don't have to explain them. You don't. You just have to listen and see if one of these speaks to you. So I give you permission. You ready? To leave the dishes until tomorrow. Maybe once in a while. Yes, you heard me right. Maybe you buy a dinner, like that rotisserie dinner. Maybe you just go out for dinner instead of cooking a full meal. Maybe you order your groceries when your work is especially busy and you don't go grocery shopping to the actual store, but you order them online and pick them up or have them delivered. You ask for help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. You leave a text message unanswered until you have a chance to breathe. To say no without feeling guilty, my friend. To choose rest without calling it laziness. To spend an afternoon with the family instead of, organizing another area of your home. How about that? That's actually kind of nice to do, right? Still August. Because what I have learned about with working with clients and with myself and family and friends, no one remembers. I can tell you that they'll remember how things matched perfectly, but they will know how it felt to be in your home. They remembered laughing around the dinner table, watching a movie together, having that conversation out on the patio deck without someone checking the clock all the time, creating memories. And that's what we're trying to make room for. It's not the perfection. It's about being present. It's that presence. I remember finishing a long organizing day with a client. It was actually a long organizing project that lasted days. But as I was leaving, she looked around and smiled. And then she said something so beautifully that resonated with me. I don't think what changed today or these past couple of days was my home. I think what was changed was how I feel when I walk into it. And that's what organizing really gives us. Not perfection, but peace. Your home should support you, your life, not become another item on your to-do list, even though we love doing our to-do lists, right? But it's just because of that. I want you to think about this question. What can I let go of this week? Not an object, not a commitment, an expectation, a pressure that you've been carrying, because sometimes the greatest things that we can declutter, it's actually our schedule. So here is my rule of 3. So as we wrap up, I want to give you this. This is actually, I do this personally and professionally. I call it the rule of 3. It's a different kind of rule of 3. All right. So when life starts feeling overwhelming, our instinct is to what? Usually make our list go longer. We write everything down. We add more reminders. We buy another planner because that's what we do because we couldn't find the other one, right? We try a new app that our friend recommended. But here's what I have learned. When our minds feel overwhelmed, they don't need more information. They need more clarity. Instead of focusing on 20 things, just choose 3. That's it. Just 3. That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. And just pick those priorities for the week. Not because the other things aren't important enough, but because 3 things will then actually make you move forward in life. And that is what we want the most of, right? For example, this week, your 3 priorities could be, setting your doctor's appointments that you've been putting off. Maybe you're going to spend the 30 minutes that you've been talking about resetting the kitchen the night before, or maybe doing it in the morning. How about that? Or maybe even just enjoying without checking a work email. That's enough. Or maybe you're a business owner like myself and you need to finish up some priorities. You want to finish up that client proposal that you've been pushing back, but you know that the deadline is tomorrow and you need to send it out tonight to send it to your client. You want to record a podcast. But of course that was thrown in for me, right? That's what I want to do. And maybe I want to get onto some networking and schedule those meetings onto my calendar. Everything else becomes secondary. So if you are a parent, maybe your three priorities might look a little bit different. Maybe it's, giving everyone back a consistent bedtime routine, because now that we're in August, school has started, you need to get them back all onto a routine. And also yourselves. Organize those school papers because they just keep coming. That never has changed in the beginning of the school year. Have you realized that? They just never change. You plan for the dinners for the week. Maybe meal planning is going to become part of your August, September, fall schedule, because summer kind of like took a step back on making those meal plans. Maybe you want to look into that. Clear, manageable. Or maybe, you know what? You want to add a morning walk. Maybe you want to do it 3 times a week. Maybe you actually want to do that one sock drawer because you have the time for it. Notice something. None of these lists are overwhelming, but what they are intentional. And that is what I want to say to you. Once you've completed and accomplished those priorities, we usually have the energy and the confidence to keep going. Because progress creates momentum. Momentum creates what? Motivation. And not only that, there's another way around that. You ready? You can do anything, but you can't do everything. Yes, I know. I think it's just such a beautiful reminder, especially those and us that are going through the busy season, because the goal isn't to do it all. The goal is to do what matters the most. So I use this also in my home, in my own personal life. And there are weeks when my planner could easily be filled with the morning until night. I definitely can, between, my podcast plannings, my YouTubes, the whole 9 yards, right? Between the clients, speaking engagements. I mean, my list can go on and on and on. But when I start to feel overwhelmed, I have to pause. And I do have to ask myself, what are my 3 things that I truly need, that truly needs my attention today? And that simple question helps me stop reacting and start to choosing. And honestly, some of my days, those 3 priorities is simply spending quality time with my family and friends, because you know what? That also is very important. And remember, productivity isn't measured only by what we accomplish. It is also measured by how we experience our lives. So this week's challenge, you ready for this week? Grab a sticky note, a notepad, a planner, whatever it is, even one of those note apps that you have on your phone, and just write out the 3 priorities, just 3 of your priorities, not 10, not 15, not 20, just 3. And as the week unfolds, come back to that list, celebrate your progress. If you finish all 3 and you have time to do more, absolutely, that's wonderful. If you only accomplish those 3 things, guess what? You've still made it much more meaningful. It's a meaningful progress, because organizing isn't about doing everything and doing more. It's about creating enough space to what? To focus on what matters the most. All right, my friend, I really hope this has resonated with you today. And remember, I have given you those permission slips. So hopefully you'll take on those permission slips. And if anything has resonated with you, share this with a friend. Remember, it's about creating life that feels lighter, a room that feels room to breathe, room for people to love that you have, room for unexpected moments, room for joy. So as we continue to move through August and into a busier season, I hope you remember this. Again, you don't have to do everything all at once. Do what matters the most and start with those 3 priorities and protect your peace. Until next week.